Oh my gosh, I haven't done a voiceover in so long. I really don't know what to do with myself. Sorry I haven't posted a speed build in a while, and I haven't really been posting at all. That's just because school got crazy. I was working 40 plus hours a week usually for the job I had. I worked at a hotel as a front desk clerk associate. There's a ton of different names that people use, but like front desk associate is probably the one that I think sounds the least dumb, which was an interesting job, but it was a lot, and so I didn't have much time, and then there was a lot of stuff going on with my school that was really stressful for me, and I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but I have social anxiety and just anxiety in general, so that wasn't super fun to deal with. But I'm back at school now. If you didn't know, I am now a sophomore in college, and I also make Sims content, but I don't make it consistently because I'm a horrible YouTuber. So today, this was months ago. I think this was last year. Like literally I was in school when I made this, I believe. So this is the gym in Willow Creek, and I really wanted to make it this kind of, what is the term? Industrial kind of more style. And I really liked the red and white look. So I made this into it's very San Myshuno style, but I made it for Willow Creek. So the top floor is like a cafe. There's like a movie screen thing that could be for like a workout video thing. The back, well, we'll go, the outside, the outside gave me some trouble. I wanted to put a sign here, and it just wasn't working out the way I wanted it to, and it was really frustrating. So, while you guys watch me fumble with this, I'll tell you some stories about my job. So, if you don't know what a front desk clerk is, basically, if you go to a hotel, when you check in, or if you call the hotel or anything, if you check in, the person who's at the front desk, that's a front desk associate or clerk or whatever. There's a ton of different names for it, but we kind of went by front desk associate most of the time. So I worked second shift, which is like 3 o'clock to 11. And if you didn't know, first shift is when like everyone checks out, and then you just have a hubbubaloo of, you have to deal with the housekeepers and everything. And I did that for a few weeks. I didn't like that as much. I had been trained in second by my friend, actually. We ended up being friends after. But I had been trained in second, and I liked that better, so I moved to second. And the problem with second shift is that you're checking people in, and a good percent of our demographic at the hotel, like, was males, like mostly men, like businessmen, truckers, and builders, like construction people. Their bosses would put them up at our hotel, and so we would have to check them in. We had regulars that we would have to like cater to. They had little oddities about them. Like there was this one guy who would only stay in this one specific room, and he stayed there like 2 times a week for the like always. So like obviously we're gonna cater to that, and it wasn't a big deal usually. And we'd have builders who would come in regularly, and truckers who would come in regularly. And a lot of people are shocked when I say this. The truckers were actually probably the most respectful people like that I had to deal with. Like truckers were the most respectful, which weirdly enough a lot of people are shocked by. I never had a trucker who like made me uncomfortable or whatever, like ever. They are usually the ones who were like would come in and they'd be like, okay, like get me into my room, let's go. They'd be polite about it for the most part, and they wouldn't be weird. But the builders were another story. Not all the builders were like this, but there was a good number of them who were just not great to deal with. They just kind of were really awkward and flirty and it was just uncomfortable. So I'm 19, by the way. So some of these stories, that there's a reason that I say I'm 19. But what my friend told me when I started working there, she's like, get like a fake engagement ring because guys will flirt with you less if you're engaged. If you're married, they see it as a way you still can get with a girl, but if you're engaged, you're less approachable. So I wore a fake engagement ring, and I'm pretty sure that kind of warded off most of it, but we still did get some guys who like didn't care about that and would make some weird comments. And I still am baffled by this. Leave a comment below if you have ever gotten this pickup line before. But one pickup line I got, one was by like a 20-year-old guy, and the other was a 50-year-old man. So it varied in ages, so that's why it confused me the most. They asked me what kind of drink girl I was, like what kind of drinks I liked, I guess. The first time it happened, it was that 20-year-old guy, and I was just like, oh, well, I'm 19, so I don't drink, and loved the awkward silence that ensued. That was probably like the funniest part. But and then the first guy who did it, 20-year-old, kind of backed off after that, and it was fine. But the second guy, the 50-year-old man, this was probably one of the more awkward situations I had ever been put in. So he was like a trucker, but not really a trucker. What he did was the buses, like the big buses for those trips or something. So he came in with his boss and then a coworker of his. His boss went right up to his room right away, and then him and his coworker stayed down. I can't even remember why they stayed down there. I think it's because it was a busy night and I had to get their keys made, and I had to get some more information from them because they booked online, which, by the way, never book online. You're making our lives miserable. If you do book online, book through the actual hotel website, because if you book through Expedia and Booking, like, we can't change anything if something gets mixed up. Like, it's a nightmare. I could rant about Expedia for like 30 frickin' years. Like, it's a nightmare to deal with Expedia people, to deal with people who go to who use Expedia. Like, it's just a frickin' nightmare. So I had to get some information from him and his coworker, which was no big deal. And I did chat, like, I don't work there anymore. I'm going to work there again in the summer, hopefully, but like I'm at school, so I don't work there at the moment. But I would chat with the customers and be like generally friendly. Like, that's kind of a big part of your job, is just like being friendly with the people, especially the regulars. You kind of have like a relationship with them, friendship. Like, you talk to them a lot because they come in so much, and most of the regulars know that front desk clerks at our hotel didn't last very long. We had like a revolving door, and that's, again, another story for another day. But I would be friendly to these people, and they were kind of joking with me, and then they were both saying that they were going to go to, because we had a bar that was like right across the street from our hotel. So that's kind of where the builders problem came in. The builders would go out, get drunk because they had nothing to do, and then they'd come back and be flirty with us. Hence why second and third shift are the more dangerous shifts, I guess. Third shift is incredibly worrisome at times. I've never worked third. I worked like half a third because my coworker came in late, but I didn't really work third. I didn't feel comfortable with it. But what happened was we were just talking, whatever, no big deal, and then I can't remember what he said exactly before that, but he said they were talking about going to the bar, and then he asked, like, oh, what kind of drink girl are you? And I was like, oh, okay, and I was like, oh, I'm 19, so, thinking, oh, that ends the conversation. And he was just like, oh, I'm drunk, I need to go to bed. And I was like, laughed, because I didn't want him to get mad, like, if I got upset at him. Like, I wasn't going to, like, be like, oh my gosh, you're a creep, because again, he didn't seem threatening to me. I didn't feel threatened. I was just uncomfortable with the question. And so there's a difference in a guy making, like, I can tell you there were guests who genuinely made me feel threatened, and then there are guests who just made me uncomfortable at times, which, like, they were in general harmless, but they would make comments that were inappropriate. So in this case, it was just a guy who made an inappropriate comment, and I was like, yeah. And then I had an engagement ring on my finger, and I would get comments about it sometimes. Like, sometimes it'll be like a boyfriend or girlfriend would come in, and a girl would be like, oh my gosh, I love your ring. And I'd be like, oh, thank you. And it'd just be like, the boyfriend's just like there, and I was like, huh, this is funny. But, so he saw my ring, and he, like, again, this wasn't the conversation. I was just getting their stuff together, and all of a sudden he just asks, abruptly, might I add, when's the big day? And I'd been asked that before, mostly by regulars, because I talk to them more often and they notice things about me more often, because obviously, like, they see me on a normal basis. So I always said, like, he asked me, like, he said, are you engaged, or are you married? And I said, I'm engaged. And he's like, when did you get engaged? And I said, about a month ago. And he's like, so when's the big day? And I said, we're waiting till I graduate from college. And then this is probably the part where I got even more uncomfortable, is because he responded, like, his response was, yeah, you don't really need, yeah, don't rush it, don't get married. Like, and I was like, why would you say that to me? It was just weird in general. Like, it was uncomfortable, and I didn't love it. It was just weird. And I've asked a couple of my guy friends before, I was like, is that like a pickup line? Like, the whole, like, what kind of drink girl are you? Apparently I look like a whiskey girl, like hard liquor. Don't drink before you're 21, kids. When I went to Canada, I have cousins in Canada, so I was legal there, but, like, I hate alcohol. It just doesn't taste good to me. Alcoholism runs in my family. So for me, drinking is kind of something I'm wary of for that reason. So, like, I don't know, but I don't think I'm a hard liquor kind of girl, so I don't know what that guy was thinking. And my sister was like, that doesn't even make sense. But my friend had to deal with more creepy people than I did. But there was an instance where something actually really bad happened. Maybe I'll talk about that later, but that was, like, a really scary thing that happened. The job overall was, like, a really kind of fun thing to do, because, like, I could read whatever. I wasn't allowed to, like, go on the computer or do anything, but I was mostly on my phone 90% of the time, because I was allowed to go to, like, this, like, where we would keep all our stuff, and, like, as long as I was near the phone, and I would have to answer phone calls. Ooh, this is sorry. I can't believe I'm still working on the outside of this. This is a terrible speed build. Also, if you just heard a weird noise, that was my chair. But I had this phone call. It was like 11 at night, so the third shift girl was coming in right at that time. She came in, like, right as I had picked up this call, and I knew the second I picked up the call, so it was not going to be a fun call, because I picked it up, and I said my general greeting, which is like, hi, thank you for calling, blah, 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 blah. This is EJ, how may I help you? And all of it was just, like, this raspy, like, slurred voice that was like, EJ, I messed up. And I was like, okay. And again, that's not the general response for them to say your name. Like, they don't. That was weird. And just, like, she was slurring her words. It was just, I was like, crap. And you get that sometimes. Like, you get a caller that's just weird, but she didn't seem like she would be, like, an angry customer, which I've gotten a fair amount of those. So I asked her what was wrong, and she explained to me that she had booked online through a booking site. So what happens with these booking sites is you book through a booking site, and it's cheaper, but you sign a prepay no cancel agreement. If you book through the hotel, you pay at check-in, and you can cancel 24-hour notice. And if there's extenuating circumstances, you can cancel sooner than that, as long as, like, the manager okays it. But with these websites, you cannot cancel. Like, you can't cancel. I can't give you your money back. It's just not possible. So that's what she had done, and she had said that she had booked for a location nearby. I worked for the hotel I worked at. I technically was an employee of the general chain, but I didn't work for this hotel that she was talking about. And so she said she had booked for that, but then when she confirmed it, it said that she had booked for our hotel. So I got her name, I went and looked at her reservation, and it said prepay no cancel. So I explained that to her. I said, I cannot change your reservation. I apologize. I wish if there was something I could do, I would. And she kept arguing with me. She's like, can you just change it to the other hotel? And I said, no, that's not possible. She's like, why not? And I said, ma'am, I don't work for that hotel. I work for this hotel. It's just not possible. She's arguing with me back and forth, and at this point, like, I'm starting to get irritated. And in general, it's easy to keep your cool, and I'm pretty sure I did a fairly good job of that according to her. Later on in the call, I wasn't, but arguing back and forth. At this point, my coworker has come in. We're still arguing, and she's like, you keep saying the same thing. And I'm like, I know, ma'am, but there's nothing else I can say. I wish there was something I could do. She's like, quit saying that to me. She's getting, like, very, very angry, like, irrationally angry. And all of a sudden, she just, like, screams out the F word, and she's getting really angry. And I was like, ma'am, I'm sorry. I repeated myself again. And she's like, quit telling me there's nothing you can do. And I said, I'm sorry, but there is nothing I can do. And I still don't understand why she said this. It still makes no sense to me to this day. She said, I hope someday you're sitting in your house and someone comes to you and tells you there's nothing you can do, and you go to heaven before your time. And I was like, I just stood there. I was like, what? I was like, huh? I was confused, and after a while she eventually hung up on me, and my coworker tried to call her back because we don't want her to leave a bad review, even if it's not even though, like, it's not warranted. People looking at the reviews don't know that. So we tried to call her back. It was the wrong number. She had given the wrong number, and there was nothing we could do. I went to work the next day, and her thing had been canceled. My boss said he never talked to her, and my boss was the only one who could cancel, and he said he never talked to her. Like, no one heard anything past that. I think maybe the first shift person had tried to talk to her, but in general it was the end of it. But I like, that was probably one of the most memorable phone calls I got, because, like, I mean, who says that? Like, wow, that's a thing to say. Like, she was just so angry with me, and, like, I understand being upset because, like, there's nothing she could do about it. But I was like, well, you can call whatever booking site. And she was like, well, this is the number they told me to call. And I was like, well, I can't do anything for you. It was just so frustrating. Working at that hotel was, like, at times would be super fun, but at times it was probably the most frustrating thing I would ever have to deal with. And I was working, like, 40 plus hours a week. And a lot of the times I had to work overtime because, like, a coworker of mine would come in late. One time I had this, and I don't want to say the name of the company, but there had been a power outage. So this power company was in town to, like, fix everything. So I got a call, I think, like, 8 or 9 o'clock. So kind of the winding down time of my shift. And it was from this company, one of the people in their company, and they said, like, we need 13 rooms, I think. And I was able to accommodate that, and I booked the reservation, and they said, do you want me to book it under the company name? Because if you didn't know, when you book a hotel room, the person who made the reservation, the person who pays for the reservation, is the only one allowed to check in. So we make special exceptions for companies and stuff, and it's a different process, but this company had worked with us before, so we had, like, a situation brought out. And she said, no, I want it under this specific name because I don't want other people in the company taking these hotel rooms. So I said, okay. I thought she would be aware of the situation at hand, that these people could not check in if they didn't have this person with them. She gave me, like, a time stamp of, like, a 3-hour time stamp. So I had a ton of other check-ins to deal with on top of these 13 check-ins. So I went about the rest of my shift, and then around 10 o'clock, these people came in, they didn't identify themselves, like they just walked in and they're like, can we get our keys? And I said, who are you? I knew who they were because it was obvious based on the other reservations I had that this was the company, but I had to ask. So I asked them and they said, we're with consumers, and I said, is so-and-so with you? Like the name they told me to put it under, and they said no, he decided not to come. So I explained to them, I said, I'm sorry, but I can't give you your keys. I explained the situation. He's like, can you just make an exception? And I said, no, like I can't make that exception because 9 out of 10 times they're telling the truth, but the 1 out of 10% chance that they're not, I could get fired. I'd be using someone else's credit card, charging them, like, it's not a good idea. So I go argue with this guy. He's being really rude. He's acting entitled because he's like, well, we're here, we're tired, we just want to get into our rooms. And I said, I understand that, sir, I'm sorry. And arguing with him, and I'm being as nice as possible. Like, I'm not getting snippy. I started to get more snippy once he was being rude to me. And this is the frustrating thing about this job, is that people don't understand that if you're gonna get we're gonna work with you a lot more if you're not rude to us, because if you're rude to us, like, we're human beings, we're gonna get fed up. So I called the company, the person I had called, I explained the situation to her. I said, look, email me the names of the people, that way I can double check and we can get this situation solved. So she gave me the names of the people. There was another round of people that would be coming afterwards or later than this group. So I got them their keys. They left. The second group came, and he said he was incredibly rude, and he's like, you should have told us not to come because we don't have enough space in the parking lot. So we had like a section of the parking lot like marked off because we were repainting lines or whatever, and I was confused. I was like, wait, what? And he's like, there's not enough space for our trucks. And I was like, I didn't know that you guys would have a lot of, because I wasn't thinking of that. I don't know anything about energy companies or anything of the sort. Like, why would I know? And I explained, I said, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And he's like, well, of course, we're like an energy company. I was like, oh, okay, I apologize. Again, these people are being incredibly rude. I get them their keys, they go up, and then the same guy who had been rude and said, can you make an exception? He was being super entitled, rude, came up to me, and he explained that he wanted to get into the pool, and I said no. And by this point, the third shift girl was in, and he started getting more mad, and he was like, you know what, like, you've been incredibly rude. He took my manager's number, and at this point I'm like, crap, like, I have to do something about it. And I said, I'm sorry, sir, like, there's nothing I can do. He's like, can't you make an exception for us? Like, my guys just want to sit in a hot tub and relax. And I said, we don't have a hot tub, and the pool closed at 10. We were not allowed to open it past that time because the wall faces like one of the rooms, so it's just not fair to those people. He wanted us to open the workout room early. We called our manager. He said no. And I explained the situation to him. I said, they came in, they were acting really rude. And my boss was like, there's nothing you can do. Like, you can't do that. You handled the situation correctly, which was abnormal for my boss. He didn't really act like that. But he understood that, like, guests sometimes were just rude and you can't, like, please them all. And he was just like, you know what, like, you were rude, you were, from the get-go, you were this. And then he wrote down my name, which my name tag was not my name, because, like I said, we had like a revolving door of employees, so my boss just like rarely ever made name tags. So it was, I had guests before that would do that. They would write down my name, or they would ask me for my name, and if I thought that they were going to get mad at me, I would give them the name that was on my name tag. Some of the guests knew that my name wasn't what it was, like a couple of the regulars knew. But he wrote down my name, and I asked my boss about it the next day. I said I apologize, like there was nothing I could do, I didn't know what else to do. And he's like, no, you handled that situation the way it should. They always come in acting like that because they're mad and they've been working working a long time, and they just always come in like that. And it was just the strangest thing, because most of the guests liked me because I was friendly or whatever. I rarely ever had people like have a problem with me, so it was kind of strange that he had a problem with me. Like, he's like the only person who ever had a problem with my attitude, other than that caller on the phone who told me to go die, essentially. Which I asked my boss about that, and he's like, yeah, if they're swearing at you or they're threatening you like that, you can hang up. Because I didn't hang up because like I wasn't going to get in trouble, but my boss was like, yeah, if they do that, hang up. So be nice to your front desk workers. They put up with a lot. It's not nice to make them suffer. Just don't make them suffer. Okay, so we're getting to the end of the video. This is like a cafe section. I just put a bunch of tables and stuff. There's not much more to it. I hope you guys enjoyed the speed build and me ranting. Do you like it more when I tell stories versus when I just talk about the build, or do you prefer it when I talk about the build? Let me know in the comments. I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.